Hello, everyone. Let me get my other spot hooked on here. Okay, I'm live over there on Facebook. Thank you, sis. I'm putting in the chat the link to come up on panel if you would like to. That's open to everybody. Wait a couple minutes because I was behind schedule. Was off playing a game on my phone, not paying attention to time. Okay, let's get started. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Please, no judgment in the comments or the chat. Just because somebody is here does not make them the alcoholic. They might be here supporting my channel or learning ways to help a friend or family member to achieve sobriety and help them to stay sober and how to uh, deal with somebody that is trying to quit drinking, because it's not an easy task for either party. So it's support for both. Anyways, one, I'm Sandra and I'm an alcoholic. One, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Three, made a decision to turn our will and our lives towards the care of God as we understood Him. Four, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Five, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Six, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. Seven, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed. We become willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. I know there's probably going to not be very many people in the chat because it is the holiday weekend. People are already heading out of town. And so if you're missing today's live stream, don't worry. You can watch the replay. Because I upload it as it is. I don't edit or anything to the AA meetings, just so you know. We are reading Alcoholics Anonymous. The big book is what we call it. And I'm in the 4th edition, so you might be on a different page. It is another chance page 531 in the 4th edition. So, I always put in the description, at least on the YouTube side, of what we're reading, the page number, the book, the story, all of it. So, another chance. Poor Black, totally ruled by alcohol, she felt shut away from any life worth living. But when she began a prison sentence, a door opened. I am an African American alcoholic. I don't know when I became an alcoholic, but I do believe I became one because I drank too much too often. I always blame my drinking on being poor, or on anything other than the truth. That I liked booze, or I liked what booze did for me. That when I had a drink, I was as big and bad as much as the next person. I would never admit that I was drinking too much or spending money that I should have used to buy food for my 2 little boys. As time went on, I drank more. I was not able to hold a job. No one wanted drunk around. I was always able to get a boyfriend who had a drinking joint or sold whiskey. But it didn't last long. I would embarrass anyone, or I would embarrass everyone by coming in drunk or passing out. Then it got to the place where I couldn't drink without going to jail. I read that completely not right. It says, then I got to the place where I couldn't drink without getting in jail. On one of these trips, the judge must have thought I was worth saving, for instead of sending me to jail, he sent me to AA for a month. I went to AA, at least my body went. I hated every minute of it. I couldn't wait until the meeting was over to get a drink. I was afraid to drink before the meeting. I thought if they smelt whiskey on my breath, they would lock me up, and I couldn't live without my bottle. I hated that judge for sending me to a place with all those drunks. I wasn't an alcoholic. Oh, I might drink too much at times. Everyone I knew drank. But I don't remember that any of them ever went to sleep in joints and woke up with no shoes on in the winter or fell out of chairs. But I did. I don't remember any of them getting put out in the winter because they didn't pay their rent. But to me, whiskey meant more than a home for my sons. Things got so bad I was afraid to go on the street, so I turned to my mother's aid. That was one of the worst things that could have happened to an alcoholic woman. I would wait for the mailman each month like any good mother, but as soon as he handed me my check, I put on my best dress and went looking for my alcoholic friend. Once I started drinking, I didn't care that the rent wasn't paid, or that there was no food in the house, or that my boys needed shoes. I would stay out until my memory was gone. Then I would go home full of remorse and wonder what I was going to do until I got my next check. In time, I began to go out and forget the way back home. I would wake up to find myself in some beat up rooming house where roaches were crawling over everything. Then the time came when I couldn't afford whiskey, so I turned to wine. Finally, I got so low down, I was ashamed of my friends seeing me, so I went to the worst joints I could find. If it was daylight, I would go down alleys to make sure no one saw me. I felt that I didn't have anything to live for, so I tried off myself many times. But I would always wake up in the psychiatric ward to begin another long treatment. Begin a long treatment. After a while, I found that the psycho ward was a good place to hide when I had taken something stolen to the pawn shop. I thought if the cops did come to the hospital, the doctors would tell them I was crazy and didn't know what I was doing. But then one good doctor told me there was nothing wrong with me except drinking too much. He said if I came back again, they would send me to the state hospital. I didn't want that, so I stopped going to psycho ward. Now I had gotten to the place where I would wake up with black eyes and not know where I got them, or wake up with a lot of money and not knowing where I got it. Later, I found out that I went into stores and stole clothes, then sold them. One morning, I woke up with $1,000. I was trying to remember where it came from when two of the biggest cops I ever saw walked in and took me to jail. It came out that I had sold a woman a fur coat. The cops had picked her up and she told them she had bought it from me. I got out on bail right away, but when I went to trial, the judge gave me 30 days. When my 30 days were up, I started back on my rounds. I didn't last long. They tell me that I offed a man during the period, but I can't remember anything. It was a total blackout for me because I had been drunk. The judge gave me only a 20-year sentence in prison. By the grace of God, I only served 3 years. It was there that I really found out what AA was. I had rejected AA on the outside, but now it came to me in prison. Today, I thank my higher power for giving me another chance at life and AA and helping and being able to try and help some other alcoholics. I have been home for a year and have not taken a drink in 4 years. Since I have been in AA, I have more friends than I ever had in my life. Friends who care about me and my welfare. Friends who don't care that I am black and that I have been in prison. All they care about is that am a human being and that I want to stay sober. Since I've been home, I have been able to gain the respect of my two sons again. The only thing that bothers me is that there are only about 5 African Americans in AA in my city. Even those don't take part in AA functions as I would like to see them do. I don't know if it's force of habit or something else that keeps them in one place. But I do know that in AA there is much work to do, and none of us can do it standing still. I do think that some of the African Americans here and other places too are afraid to go to other meetings. I just want to say that you don't have to be afraid because no one at any AA meeting will bite you. There are no color bars in AA. If you give us a try, you will see that we are really human beings and we will welcome you with open arms and hearts. I'm writing this during an AA convention where I have spent the weekend with nothing but white people. They haven't eaten me yet. I've not seen a black face but mine since. I've been there, and if I didn't look in the mirror, I wouldn't know that I was black. Because these people treat me as one of them, which I am. We all have the same sickness, and in helping one another, we are able to stay sober. Hey, Tony, I see you here. I'm going to go ahead and read at the next one. It's a late start on page 535, only because that one was really short. I see you're on both. I don't know which one you're on, but hi. It's been 10 years since I retired, 7 years since I joined AA. Now I can truly say that I am a grateful alcoholic. I am a 75-year-old alcoholic. For 55 of those 75 years, I led what is known as a normal middle class life. Alcohol had as little part in it as candied yams. Nice when they're nice when I grew up, unmissed when absent. The home in which I grew up included 2 loving parents, one older brother, a constant flow of house pets, riding horses, and friends who were welcomed. Discipline in our house was strict, but not out of line with the thinking prevalent during the first quarter of my 20th century. Certain Certainly, I don't consider that I was in any way abused. I attended private school and later a Midwestern college. I married, had children, worked, experienced the pain of the death of my parents and of a child. Knew too the pleasure of real friends and financial success. I enjoyed horseback riding, swimming, tennis, and had quiet evenings filled with children's books and friends. What happened to me somewhere between the ages of 55 and 63, I've no idea. Was life too much? Did some latent gene suddenly take on a fierce life of its own? I don't know. What I do know is that at 65, I was a crawling, dirty maggot of a woman, willing to tarnish all I'd worked for and to desecrate every dear relationship I had. I know too that through a wonderful set of God guiding circumstances and people, I was led to the only possible course of behavior that will keep me sane, sober, constructive, and happy. I was 20 when I had my first drink, and although I liked the taste, I didn't like the way it made me feel. I didn't drink again until I was in my early 30s and thought it made me seem cool and so and sophisticated. During these early years, a couple of drinks were enough, and I often nursed one scotch on the rocks for a full evening. When I was 35, my 12-year-old son was diagnosed with an incurable cancer, and within a few months, my husband demanded a divorce. For the following 5 years, while my son lived, I seldom drank and never drank alone. Agony, fear, hurt, and exhaustion did not make me a drunk. Happiness opened that door much, much later. During my mid 40s, my interest in alcohol began to gain momentum. Although I had continued to work, I had otherwise isolated myself to care for my son and his younger sister, each of whom required a special dose of stability, love, and security. Soon after my son's death, I made a decided effort to re-enter the adult world. My debut encouraged my drinking. It was not yet obsessive, but drinking became more and more a part of my daily life. I no longer entertained without serving cocktails and seldom attended gatherings where liquor wasn't provided. I always managed to find the post activity drinking crowd, whether I was after dog obedience training or an oil painting class during my late 40s. It was not unusual for me to have a drink alone in the evening, although there were still many days hi Gina, when I didn't drink at all. Any event was an occasion for excessive celebration, and there were increasingly frequent weekends when I drank myself to a hangover, creating high. Nevertheless, it was during this period that I received a major job promotion. I was 49 when my second husband and I were married. Years before, we had dated through high school and 2 years of college, but then were separated by World War II. Each of us had married elsewhere, divorced, and 30 years later we met by chance. We had 10 years of laughter, sharing, and wonderment, well laced with martinis and scotch on the rocks. By the time I was 60, anyone wise in the ways of alcoholism would have known I was in for big trouble. Happy plans dissolved into pouts, arguments, began and meals burned. Hurricanes of anger rushed through our once happy cottage. We agreed we were drinking too much. We tried to switch techniques. The time controlled schedule, the drink only on weekends ploy. Nothing worked. Between us, we were badly damaged our budget. My husband lost his job, and then for 2 harrowing years, I watched him die of alcoholism. But I learned nothing from his death, and my drinking escalated as I bottle fed my sorrow. My early 60s saw me drunk every night and more frequently, calling in sick or for personal leave. Life was pure and unadulterated hell. At work, I was often shaking so badly that I hesitated to give direction because I would have had to sign the letters. I made every possible excuse to meet someone for a business luncheon so that I could have a drink or two. As my alcoholism accelerated, my absenteeism increased and my productivity diminished. I bounced checks, pawned silver, mourned, and I continued my drinking. Finally, on one cold winter day, I called Alcoholics Anonymous, and that evening, two ladies took me to a meeting. We had a 25-minute ride in the car, and I remember how good it was to talk about my fear and shakes, how kind they were without encouraging my self pity. I remember being given a cup of coffee I could hardly handle and hearing impossible promises that would materialize if I would only make the impossible commitment. I did want to stop. The lady suggested that I go to a women's meeting the next night, and I did. I had a drink first, of course, and when it came time to identify myself, I started that my brain told me I was an alcoholic, but the rest of me didn't believe it. The next night it snowed and I stayed home and drank. That was the end of my first try at AA. Some months later, I invited my daughter and son in law for dinner to celebrate her birthday. They found me sprawled across the living room floor, passed out cold. What a mournful birthday present. It took very little persuasion to convince me to go into the detoxification program at the local hospital. I knew I was in trouble. I was ashamed and heartbroken that I had caused her such hurt. 7 days in detox and 8 weeks of really good help from a psychologist, and I was dry, sober, and ready to face the world again. The doctor strongly suggested that I participate in the local AA program, but I would have none of it. I was cured. I needed no further help. A year and a half later, I retired. I was enjoying my new freedom and gave myself permission to have a drink, only when I was dining out. That worked out so well that I made a new rule. I could have a cocktail before dinner and an after dinner drink. Then I made a rule that said I could serve alcohol to my friends in my home. That, of course, is the rule that sent me spinning right back down into fearful drunkenness. I was worse than before. My self imposed hell was in my own home, unbathed in the same nightclothes day after day, afraid of the phone, the doorbell, and the darkness. If the clock said 6, I wouldn't know whether it was morning or evening. Days ran into each other in an agonizing blur. I crawled to bed, drank when I came to, and sat shivering in fear of some unknown tragedy that I thought was about to descend on me. I remember wailing because I couldn't make coffee, sitting curled in a corner trying to sort out how I could commit offing myself without making a mess. I might have tried, but I was afraid no one would find me before I started to stink. Once again, my daughter came to my rescue, and I checked into detox program at the hospital. This time, I was there for 10 days. During that time, AA meetings were made available at the hospital. I was genuinely touched by the fact that they were led by a young man in a leg cast and on crutches, especially when I recognized that he came as a volunteer. And twice before I left, I was given a leave of absence to attend local AA meetings. Others have stated that they eagerly embraced the AA program. Unlike them, I did not enter the rooms willingly, nor did I find myself immediately at home. However, I had no option, then there was no escape route that I had not tried, none that had not led to another failure. I was 69 years old. I had neither time nor health to waste. For 6 months, I didn't drink, attending meetings and sometimes reading the big book. I went to meetings exactly on time, sat quietly, and left as soon as the meeting closed. In no way was I a part of the group. I was not impressed by the sayings and didn't really believe the messages I heard. Then one day I was called on to share, and I proceeded to explode. I announced that in no way was I a grateful alcoholic, that I hated my condition, that I did not enjoy the meetings, and that I did not leave the meetings refreshed. I found neither ease nor growth in the fellowship. My healing began with the arrogance of the statement. One of the women came to me after the meeting and told me I was about to go out. She offered to help me find a sponsor and led me to exactly the person I needed. This lady had 19 years of sobriety and, even more important, a wealth of experience in helping and guiding alcoholics through the steps of AA. By no means do I intend to imply that I leap with pleasure into the program. I stalled and resented and refused to accept each step as it came up. I felt challenged by each new concept and resentful towards my sponsor, who seemed intent on reducing me to abject stupidity. It was years before I realized that I resented the changes the program asked me to make, not my sponsor. With the patience of unconditional love, she led me to acknowledge first that I was powerless over alcoholism, then that others before me had conquered their illness, that there had to be some source of help higher than any one of us, and that together we were as well of strength on which any one of us could draw. From that point, it was not hard to venture into the realization that a power greater than any one of us existed, and with the understanding of found direction, or I found direction to my own special higher power. On that spiritual foundation, I began to build a new life. The third step was the most important for me, but having completed it, I found that I could face or untangle the other steps if and when I could remember to relax, trust the program, and implement the steps rather than fight it. Accepting my higher power did not fully change my attitude of resistance. It just made yielding to instructions a more rational and acceptable mode of behavior. For each step, I still had to go through the process of recognizing that I had no control over my drinking. I had to understand that the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous had helped others and could help me. I had to realize that if I did want sobriety, I'd better do the steps whether I liked them or not. Every time I ran into trouble, I ultimately found that I was resetting charge or resisting change. Sorry. My mentor had to remind me that AA is not just a project. AA offers me an opportunity to improve the quality of my life. I came to recognize that there is always a deeper and wider experience awaiting me. Early in my growth, I remember thanking my sponsor for the hours and hours she had given me. She said, "Don't you think that you will do the same for someone else someday?" I replied, "I will never be responsible to or for anyone else ever again." That refusal to make any kind of repayment to the program delayed my offering to be a service in any capacity, and consequently delayed my maturing process. Not until 2 years had passed was I willing to act as group secretary. It was 4 years before I was willing to sponsor anyone. Today it is with real gratitude that I am allowed into the lives of a few women. My own understanding and broadened and deepened by their influence in my life. As a newcomer, and I examine each step, both she and I receive new insight and find an additional facet to the to this jewel of sobriety. I'm proud now to be a part of the fellowship that showed me the path up and out of hell. Now I'm eager to share my experience as others have shared theirs with me. Small miracles keep offering new opportunities just when I need change and growth. New friends come, New friends have shown me hidden truths in those sayings that I once found so shallow. The lessons of tolerance and acceptance have taught me. This is the one my sponsor always told me that I needed to read and keep reading it over and over and over and over. Taught me to look beyond exterior appearances, to find the help and wisdom so often lurking beneath the surface. All my sobriety and growth, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, are dependent upon my willingness to listen, understand, and change. During my 5th year, as a part of my annual personal inventory, I realized that I had not succeeded in developing a spiritual depth in my program. I had accepted what I was taught, but had not gone in search of the private growth that I saw in others. I watched for and found people who take the program with them as they live, work, and play in the real world. Through their leadership, by precept and example, I am finding the daily excitement essential to my development as a person and to my contrast with my higher power. Contact, not contrast. I approached Alcoholics Anonymous with fear and hesitation, then urged by the dread of what was behind me. I took tiny, delicate steps onto the new path. When I found the footing was firm, each tentative move brought me a little nearer to trust. Confidence grew, faith in my higher power expanded, and I came to recognize a light I had not known existed. Something within me shifted and welcomed a new source of strength, understanding, tolerance, and love. That selfish, withdrawn woman who announced that she would never be responsible to or for anyone ever again now finds sincere warmth in just being available. I count it a privilege to help other drunks. It's been 10 years since I retired, 7 years since I joined AA. Now I can truly say that I am a grateful alcoholic. Had I not become a drunk, I would have become another sober but sad statistic. At 75, I would be a lonely, unproductive old woman watching TV, doing needlepoint in my home without friends, and sinking further and further into an old age depression. As it is, AA has filled my days with friends, laughter, growth, and the feeling of worth that is rooted in constructive activity. My faith in the contact with my higher power shines more brightly than I dreamed it could. Those promises I thought were impossible are a viable force in my life. I am free to laugh all of my laughter, free to trust and be trusted, free to both give and receive help. I am free from shame and regret, free to learn and grow and work. I have left that lonely, frightening, painful express train through hell. I've accepted the gift of a safer, happier journey life through life. So the second one I read, I didn't highlight anything in it. But the first one I read, I did. I highlight all the time. So the first thing I highlighted was I always blame my drinking on being poor or on anything other than the truth. That I liked what booze did for me. That when I had a drink, was as big and bad as much as the next person. I would never admit that I was drinking too much or spending money that I should have used to buy food for my two little boys. My boys always had food, but I did spend money that I didn't have to spend on booze. More than once. It was like all the time. And then I had rejected AA on the outside, but now it came to me in prison. Today, I thank my higher power for giving me another chance at life and AA and being able to try and help some other alcoholic. I have been home for a year and have not taken a drink in 4 years. So, yeah, you could drink in prison. There's ways that they do it. I don't know how they do it. I've never been there. Don't want to go there. Don't want to know. It is what it is. But being in a structured spot like that, it would be kind of easy, I would think, not knowing for sure, but I would think would be easier to not drink while you're inside. And a lot of you have more time while you're in there to go to school, attend meetings, because yes, there are meetings in prisons, in the jails. There is. There's meetings absolutely everywhere, and it only takes two people to make a meeting. My sponsor reminds me of that. Since I have been in AA, I have more friends than I ever had in my life. Friends who care about me and my welfare. Friends who don't care that I am black and that I have been in prison. I have friends that care from AA and outside of AA. But I would think in her time that it would be kind of hard to go to meetings. Okay. Um I would completely understand somebody of color being worried in that era, worried about coming to a meeting, but nowadays I wouldn't. I mean, everybody has their own excuse on why they haven't gone to a meeting, or they say it's not going to work and blah 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 and all that. But in that time I could understand. But again, in those rooms, we don't judge by anything. It's not our place to judge each other. And so And even those who have gone out since becoming sober, we don't judge them for coming back either. And sometimes it takes a lot more courage to come back than what it does to just start going. Um, I can understand that. I just want to say that you don't have to be afraid because no one at any AA meetings will bite. I'm white and I thought everybody was going to bite me when I went to my first meeting because I didn't think that I knew anybody other than my friend that was going to be there. And the last part I highlighted in this one was we all have the same sickness, and in helping one another, we are able to stay sober. Yes. I know I can relate with the not wanting to, in the second story, anyways, not wanting to sponsor anyone right off because I was that way for a while when I first started going to AA. And I knew I was going to stay sober regardless, but I didn't know how much those meetings would help me to become who I am now, the sober alcoholic, and living through AA. And I have my first job as a member of AA. I think the first thing that I helped with was hanging the signs inside with the prayers and steps on them. And so that was one thing that I did. And then I graduated from doing that to, sorry, I went from doing that to setting out the pamphlets. And so I automatically started in service work once I started actually going to meetings every week. I started going to 2 meetings a week. I have to say I didn't always stay at them for the whole meeting. But once I started listening to what they were saying, I could relate really well with almost everybody there. Not all our stories are exactly the same, but we all have that one thing in common, and that's being an alcoholic. And that is what we're trying to live without, is the alcohol. So once you start using your program, you start learning or start listening and learning things in the rooms. It helps a lot. Being able to relate with others who have been sober for a long time. My sponsor is not, I think maybe she's 3 years older than me in sobriety. But, sorry, been a long day. But she has been my sponsor for 11 years. And she would always tell me, get that step done, get that fourth step done. You need to be doing that step. Work on that step. I blew it off, procrastinate, put it off. No, I'm not doing it right now. Well, why not? Because I don't know. Because I don't want to right now. But I eventually did it. And I still do. I still do my fourth step. I do my steps every day. But sometimes it does take people more than one go at AA to get the hint that, hey, it's slapping you in the forehead. Come to, you know. I don't know. Sobriety is definitely a different life for sure. Being able to get up and say, I'm not drinking today, it's worth it every single day. I sleep, I eat, I still pray every day. Pray every day, and it's not for myself, because that's something that we're taught is you don't pray for yourself, because that's what we did while we were drinking. And the prayer used to be, Lord, if you help me get out of this one, I'll never drink again. Yeah. It don't work. But having a higher power of your making of what you want it to be, that's how we get spiritual. And eventually you'll get that aha moment. And sometimes you won't recognize it at first. But the other part is acceptance. You have to accept that you are what you are. You're a recovering alcoholic. I've had people tell me, "Oh, you're not a recovering alcoholic for the rest of your life. You're still, you know." I'm like, "No, if you're not drinking and you're sober and you work your program, you're a recovering alcoholic, and it stays for life. It doesn't go away. Just because you're sober and all of that doesn't mean that you're not still a recovering alcoholic, because you're an alcoholic for the rest of your life. It doesn't just poof, it don't work that way. Our brains don't work that way. We'd like them to, but they don't. Um, like, I have done some pretty stupid stuff being drunk. I drank and drove once. I drank and rode once till I got busted and got yelled at to get off that quad. Yeah. Stupid stuff. And getting in fights with family members, friends. Can't say coworkers because I didn't have any at that time. But you get my point. So, what I always try to tell people is, what I do anyways, is I talk about my sobriety to everyone. I mean, eventually we'll be in a conversation and it will come up eventually, because that's something that I talk about a lot. And you never know when somebody's going to need to hear that. So just know you're not alone. There's help everywhere. And if you want to get sober, you have to do it for you. Don't plan it around or for anyone else, because that doesn't work. And then until you can take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And when you're an alcoholic, you can't take care of yourself, because that's what you're thinking about, is that booze. And that's not taking care of yourself. That's throwing yourself away, basically. So, and if if you're struggling, you're not alone. And there's help everywhere. Most phones have Google. Google a meeting. Type in AA. And also, if you don't want to do that, download the app, the Daily Reflections app. They have the steps and traditions and the readings and the books, and they have it all in the app. And it's worth it. And it doesn't cost anything to have it or use it. It's free. And I do these meetings as my service work, on top of telling people that I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I will forever be a recovering alcoholic. And yeah. But I think that's a meeting. And no clue how long I've been yapping. An hour. So, anyways, you guys, be happy, stay sober. Hit subscribe and the bell so you can be notified of the next AA meeting, because that's usually when I do the live streams. But Monday I will be fishing, so I will probably be live for a little while on Monday. So, anyways, let's say our serenity prayer and close the meeting. Hope you guys have a good holiday weekend. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. Love you guys.